does anyone want to tackle sort of the first? I'll frame the problem and then throw to one of you.
Phil, can you?
I want to tell you the story about. I talked to a guy one time who said, he said, I've got all the money I need for the rest of my life as long as I'm dead by Thursday.
It's awesome.
No, I can empathize with that. Yeah.
That's right.
You know what that guy needs?
Yeah.
He needs some magic mind. Yeah.
He needs some mushrooms. Any mushrooms.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. I'm Chris Lockhart, and we have Phil Yanoff and we have Wendy Keene today. Hi, Wendy. Good to see you. So listen, as you guys know, I frequently spend time on the subreddit for consulting. And I'm out there, I'm reading stuff, and I'm looking at this one post, which really resonated with me personally. The title of it is like Jack of all trades, master of none, right? Which is often better than, master of one. But I think the point of this person's post was, look, they've spent a consulting career doing a variety of different things. And now they're faced with the prospect of going to industry. And they're looking at this and sort of saying like, hey, I've done all these things. How do I sort of focus my broad career into an area where a potential employer sees a fit? Because we're all familiar, right, with job postings that say very specific sets of experience, and people that have this broad set of experience, oftentimes maybe don't see that there's a fit. At any rate, I'm looking at this; it resonated with me. But this person asked for some advice, but I kind of have a couple of questions about this, right, Phil? I mean, first of all, like, is this even a valid perspective? Like, I have this broad experience, therefore I can't apply to any specific corporate jobs. It confuses them.
Yeah. No, I think when people get started, right, and we don't have the advantage here being able to ask the querent any questions, right? Because I ended up with questions, not answers, because I don't think it's, by the way, this is a good consulting technique. Someone comes to you with a problem, start asking questions. Don't start offering answers right away, right? Because quite frankly, most of the time, we're not even sure we know what the actual problem is. And I'm not sure this cat knows what the actual problem is. Maybe something's not right at work and they think it's time for a change, but is it true that up and or out, is that really what's going on with them? And then if it is, then are they really sure about where they've been or how someone else might read the story of their lives? They're reading it one way. They're not getting feedback on it or anything at this point. They've just made a decision of their own. And I have so many concerns, Chris, and I'm sure that you share them.
Yeah. And Wendy, my first question is, at what point do you decide 15 years of consulting? I suck at this. I'm out of here. Right? It's like, you've made it 15 years. That's an achievement, isn't it?
For sure. Well, and I guess the way I look at it is we have different seasons in our lives too. So maybe we've been there for 15 years, gained a lot of experience, but we just want something different too. Sometimes you want to be on the other side of the table. Sometimes you just want to have that ability to make the decision and be in those four walls, or be a part of something in a different way that you're not as a consultant. So I think that's okay to actually want that shift. And I think it's okay to go back into consulting as well.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, the reason it resonated with me personally is, I started as an enterprise architect, and as such, you get exposed to lots of different industries, right? Because, if you are tackling, fraud detection or security things or some sort of messaging or whatever it might be related to, a business problem, a lot of those business problems transcend industries, right? And can be in FS or insurance or whatever it might be. And so I really felt this one because I've always thought of myself as they say in baseball, right, a utility player. You can play multiple positions. I've always thought that was a strength, right, not a weakness. But I can definitely see where, like, you look at some of these job postings and it's like, how do you fit your broad set of experience into this box, right, that this employer is looking for? Like, that's a challenge, right? Any thoughts
and
on
why
that?
do you want to do that? Why do you want to stick it in someone else's box? I mean, maybe it's time for something new. Why would you not be saying, well, who am I right for? Where do I think the opportunities are? Is that how I'm going to put my narrative together? Right. But I think that you got to ask that question of, where do I want to go? Not, oh, it looks like this cat's paying the most. Let me make myself fit that hole, right? Let's make this square peg fit that round hole.
I think that's exactly right, Phil, right? And it comes to, there's value in being that utility player and being a generalist, right? And then there's value in specialization. So I think it's also about choice. Or if you want to go into specialization because that's interesting and you're ready to dig into something, then I think there are ways to craft that narrative and craft the resume and take the experiences and the knowledge and the skills that we have and really hone them around industry, role, or strengths and competencies. Maybe you're playing up leadership or technology or strategic planning. There's this conversation reminds me of a book I read a long time ago. It's called Body of Work by Patricia Slim. And I think it's very relevant to this conversation because in the book, she talks about looking at your body of work, which, by the way, is not just professional, but also personal, right? The things you've done and created and your roots, and just trying to put a wrapper around it. So she gives examples like solving complex problems or building bridges or making the world more accessible to people. So I also feel like, crafting a narrative around who you are can also be valuable too.
Yeah, I think of this, and we've often talked about things like making sure that you understand what your value system is, right? And if you are not in the right place, or in this particular person's case, applying maybe for new jobs, I think there was a comment in there about, like, I've reformatted my resume for 100 times or whatever like that, and it's like, well, that's a lot. Like, what are you really trying to target, right? I mean, maybe this is simply a question of, I don't know what I want. I don't know.
Well, I love that because I think at some layer, when you're at that spot, it's not, I don't know what I want. It's, I just want someone to love me, is really the question, right? Everyone, we always say we're looking for a sense of significance, sense of community, right? Those are sort of two core underlying things. And sometimes it can be, if you think I'm going to look for love in 100 different places. I was talking to a guy, by the way, on one of our calls a month ago, and he said this, and he wasn't being ironic or anything. He said, I've submitted my resume 700 times, right? To 700 places.
That I really wanted to work at, all 700 of them.
Well, obviously, the humor of that is that can't possibly be true. Right. He's just saying, I just want someone to, and I get it if you're just trying to get at bats. Maybe that is a big number because it's like, no, I just want to have some conversations. And here's the deal. I don't really need it right now. I just thought I'd like to have some conversations with some people. I'm going to use this to figure out where the market is, even if it's just for right now. That's a very valid thing. Like, let's talk to some people. Let's ask some questions. Let's have some questions asked of me. I always think I like having people ask me questions because I'm not sure what I'm going to say until that moment, right? It just poof. And then I got to figure out, what is my brain really going to work on? So I think that part is right. But if someone's out there submitting 100 times because there's 100 places they want to love them, I think we've got bigger questions to ask again, even on that, right? No, let's figure out what you want. What are the things that are in fact important to you? How can we help you figure out what it is you want next? And then let's tell a story that makes sense for that.
And Phil, I like this exploring approach. I really like the place that comes from. It also reminds me that, and I'm very sympathetic to this, But just putting the resumes out there is not always the best approach. We know how human it is to find jobs. So even in some of those exploratory conversations, or, just meeting in communities or, associations, I think just, building human relationships with people is also part of finding the right fits and finding a job too.
Yeah.
We this touches on so many things that we have spent time talking about, right? And like the having human conversations with human people through your network. When you need the network is not the time to build the network, right? All of these things that we've been talking about. But tactically, if you're like this person 15 years into consulting, and if we are to read and trust what he's saying here, he's in an up or out situation. So that, to me, that sounds like higher end management consulting, right? And if you're on the out track for whatever reason, you now have, maybe you got a cushion of a few months, maybe there's some severance, whatever there is. You got kids and a mortgage. You're probably beginning to panic, right? Which is like, I need to replace my 6-figure income with another 6-figure income in a matter of months in a market that is not great, right? And I have not been managing my career. Like I remember when we talked to Patrick, Phil, right, about how he deliberately set out like with a grand master plan of like, here's what he was going to do. And he did it, right? But most people, I would argue, don't do that, especially if they enter consulting in their early 20s. They're like, let's just see how this goes. And then 15 years later, you got a wife and kids and a house and a dog and a golf cart payment and things of that nature, right? And it's like, you need to find a source of income. And so you don't have time to go build the network. You don't have time to wonder who you are, right? And all these sorts of things, at least in if I'm putting myself in their position. I don't have time to do all that. I just need to put out 700 resumes and the hope that, 10 of them hit and I can have a conversation. Tactically, it sounds like what we're saying, there's a couple of things. I think one of the things I think we're saying is you're probably looking at the problem wrong, right? The problem isn't that companies don't want me. It's I'm looking for love in all the wrong places. Right.
You're just keeping that metaphor going.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Right. Yeah. And so, it sounds like it's like, step back, take a pause, take 2 days, take a beat. Sometimes what I do, Phil, I think I've done this sometimes with you, right? Go have a cigar, go to the brewery, sit there, have a few pints, drink some Magic Mind, right? Whatever it might be, right? Have that focus and just sketch some stuff out, right? And think through, like, what am I looking for here? Do I want a job at a company that values my utility player experience? Or do I want to take, I think this person talked about they were in lean manufacturing, they did due diligence and things of that nature. Due diligence is a great sort of, generalist type of thing, right? Where you can do some work. But I think it comes down to, I need to at least identify what the hell it is I'm trying to do before I just spam resumes all over the place and then feel bad when no one calls me.
Chris, if you do not
Was I emoting too much? Was that too much about me?
If you do not understand your own T-loss, there is no amount of dollars that will fill that hole that is in your heart. All right?
I love it when you speak Greek to me, Phil.
But I think I feel bad because like we're like painting this querent with every sort of brush, right? We don't really know what's going on in his life, or I think it's a him. I don't know that for sure even, but we're assuming that, but we're just painting with all sorts of brushes. But to your point exactly, there is nothing that will fill the hole in your heart if you don't know what the shape of that thing is. If you don't know what it takes specifically in terms of being aligned with your own personal values and your own goals and whatever you're trying to get done with your life. But if you have not figured out, nothing will fill that. You cannot fill it with just dollars. It won't do it.
So is it hopeless for this person, for the querent? Is it hopeless, Wendy?
Well, two things. One, I hear your point too on, this is really urgent, right? I need to replace that salary ASAP. Honestly, my move would be, and even forget big network, right? I would reach out to some trusted colleagues or friends if I haven't talked to them in a while. To me, that is still going to be a much better path to some quicker type of results, even if an interim job. than, just trying to sending out resumes cold and hoping that it's a numbers game. So that I would say from an urgency perspective. But second, I think is really embracing, again, across those, what do I want to do? And what is that body of work? What's that thread? I think the generalist, the big picture thinker, the dot connector has actually never been more valuable than it is right now. Just even look at artificial intelligence and, the Gen AI and already the effect that has. It's the human skills, right? That keep coming to the table. Or, something like, a field like sustainability. We need all the specializations, but who are the people that can bring things together? Who can design ecosystems and circular economies? And, the types of things this person has done or a generalist can do, I think are very well suited for that. So lean into that, embrace that. I would run with that.
Yeah, I like that, right? And yeah, Phil, I know we're painting with a broad brush, right? We don't know this cat's like specific situation, right? But let's say you got a bit of time, right? I mean, is there? So all right, so you're looking at the industry, AI, whatever, right? There's stuff out there that's hot, right? And what about AI? Who knows, right? Whatever. We don't really know right yet, but like there's something maybe in that space that could be something as a generalist that you are capable of adding some value to some companies around. Is there time, or maybe let's just assume that he's got 6 months or whatever it is to figure this shit out. Figure this stuff out. Is this a situation like we talk about, like, oh, you need the right skills a lot, right? And it's like, is this a skill thing? Like I got to go get certified in Cisco, whatever, and become have a certification? Do I need to take some classes? Do I need to skill up maybe in this time frame? Or is this, I really need to hit the networking beat and, reactivate my existing networks of people to sort of find out what's out there? What's sort of tactically, in the near term, could this person do if they've got a bit of time to do it?
All right, dear listener. If you are in this very moment trying to figure this out, I want you to pull out a piece of paper and I want you to write down these 4 words. Listen to Wendy Keene. She just dropped a bomb on you that you should be paying attention to. Listen, if I need to solve a problem quickly, let's go back to what works. Let's find the people that I know in my network where I've had success with them in the past and say, if you were me and you were trying to solve this problem in the short term, what would you do?
And you're a
Listen
consultant.
to Wendy King.
You're a consultant for 15 years. You've answered this question for other people.
Yes.
Many times. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's as easy as that. I mean, well, the thing is, all of those things are good. Let me say, you presented a couple of bad ideas, and I think you were doing that so that I would take a swing at them, because I think you're right. I know, but I mean, the skill up thing. This is the first way that people like divert themselves from the actual problem at hand.
Yeah.
The actual problem are the connections and looking for the right problems. There is thinking that somehow in this big, wide, general world, I've done this for 15 years, but somehow I'm missing some critical thing that will help me be successful. Yeah. That is nonsense. And why do we love and embrace that particular bit of nonsense? Is because it means we don't have to go ask people for things. And that's what we really ought to be doing.
Well, it also means you don't have to do anything. I've done this for 15 years. I don't know anything. I don't know shit about shit. Stuff about stuff, right? And all I have to do is take a course, and now I'll have the knowledge. If I get certified in, whatever program management, suddenly I'll have some sort of new revelation that I never. Listen, you've been doing this already for 15 years. You may not know the specific. So just let's take this from a CBT standpoint, though. Yeah. Let's. Here's the thing: you are absolutely right, but this cat, since we've painted him this way, will want to fight with you with that, right? Your point is exactly on. So we have to ask them, well, where's the evidence for that you need some new skills? Right.
And they won't have that. And you'll say, well, talk to me about some of the successes that you've had in the past. What kind of companies were those with? Who were you working with? Did that work well? How did that feel? Did that pay well? did that actually meet your needs at the time? And once you've built up this body of evidence that they know how to do things for people that they care about in pursuing opportunities that they understand, then they've got this body of evidence that goes, okay, I guess I do know how to do this. And is there any reason in the world that that person would hang up on you if you called them? Can you imagine? What are they going to do when you call them?
And the evidence for this, by the way, this cat says, I've worked on some pretty cool projects. What were those projects? Because you thought they were cool, which means you kind of enjoyed, or, there was something about it that intrigued you.
Right.
And then the second part of that, what did the client think about the outcome of the thing that you did? If they loved it, guess what? Here's something you like to do and people see value in it. Boom, there's your answer.
Look at that. I just brought Lockhart onto Team Phil. Come on, Wendy. Let's make something happen here. We got it. I love it. I think this is the answer for this, right? And but again, I'm not sure you approach this with the right problem, but this happens all the time. It's like me showing up at the doctor's office and saying, I got a pain in my stomach. I must be I've got a pain here. I'll go like this. I remember this, by the way. I did this as a young man. I got a pain. I think I'm having a heart attack. And they do all this stuff. It's like, it's your stomach, foolish. I mean, we know how we've seen this a million times. You've got acid reflux or something. I was young at the time. But like, you walk into the doctor thinking you're having a heart attack and it's your stomach. You don't know anything about what their actual problem is. That's their job.
So it's head trash. Is it head trash, Wendy?
Is it head trash? I think that's where we're landing. And back to your original point too, of if you had more time, if you did have those 6 months, I would have those conversations that Phil and we've talked about having. And then I would put myself in all of the places that I wanted to lean into, right? So if I was going to lean into AI and be a generalist there, I would be in those conversations. I would be on those webinars. I would be connecting to those people, right? Whatever it is, I'm going to go be with those people, because I'm not only meeting people that are more likely to turn into opportunities, but I'm learning, I'm getting other ideas, right, as I go and how I want to recraft things.
There's another bit of head trash in this person's post. I mean, we're just beating the hell out of this guy, but there's another piece of head trash here, which is, I'm in an up or out situation. I'm definitely out because I lack an ability to generate new business, right? And I want to talk about that for just a second, right? Which is not so much about what do I do about that, but more along the lines of, is that really true, right? Because generating new business as a junior to mid-level consultant, or even as a manager or principal, you're often dependent, and we've talked about this before, on the structure, the pyramid structure above you. You have to be with the right partner. You have to be in the right practice. You have to have those good relationships. You have to do all that sort of stuff. So I would even question whether that is accurate or not. Maybe it's more accurate to say I haven't generated enough business to meet the threshold for the up, and therefore I'm out. But I would really question that, because I mean, if you've done this for 15 years and you've done what this guy talks about, like due diligence, that involves talking to people, M&A, solution development, lean manufacturing. That involves personal skills, soft skills, things that we've talked about that are necessary. And he's a generalist. So I wonder whether that's even accurate or not, right? I don't know. Is business development something a generalist should be generally good at? Or is that like the domain of a specific niche, right? I know the most about, I don't know, big data, whatever the hell it is, right? And therefore I can sell about that. Or because I would think it the other way. I would think the generalist is probably better at BD.
Yeah, but I think it also depends on the role, right? So if you have your own business, you're working in consulting, you're in your role, then yes, because it comes with part of that. And as I know we've said before, like we're all selling, right, to some point, right? But if you're a generalist working for a company and solving certain problems, then I don't know that means you have to do business development or be good at it. So I feel like it's a little bit dependent on the person actually and how they look at it.
Let's beat up on Oliver since he's not here. He put a question in, or a statement, right? Something to the effect of, let's talk about how the world doesn't value generalists, right? And I can see his point, right? And I think this guy in this post is trying to make that point. The world that I'm applying to for a new job doesn't value my breadth of experience. And I think we've talked about it. You're probably not telling the right story, right? You're probably looking in the wrong place, all those good things. Is there, Wendy, like a avoidance of generalists out there from your perspective? You see everything. Phil, you do too. What do you guys think?
I'll share first, Phil, and then jump in. This space speaks to me very deeply because I'm all about not just the generalist, but the big picture thinking and the connecting the dots, right? So I think many parts of our world don't value it. I think it's rooted in how work was shaped, right? How industrial work was shaped, how organizations were designed. I think it's reflective in the way that we teach kids in separate subjects and teach business school in separate subjects. And so I think these sort of disconnected or specialties get a little bit romanticized and just like kind of driven in again and again. But I also think, and this is the part where I see on a daily basis, right? Not having the big picture thinking, not having the dot connecting, not having the really good generalists is also the source of a lot of our challenges. How we deliver strategy, how we deliver transformation, trying to build, business ecosystems in sustainable worlds, trying to even treat patients, right? Like, which take a holistic, so no matter sort of which profession you want to think about, it requires working together. So, I think and hope that our world will continue to shift the paradigm and value this type of collaboration and big picture thinking. And I think it's big picture thinkers and generalists that can continue to show the value of it and change minds.
And Wendy, that's something you talk about in your book, right? Strategy to Reality.
Definitely.
If you guys don't know about Strategy to Reality, you should probably go out to Amazon right now. Strategy to Reality by Wendy Keene. And you talked specifically about this, right? Yep. I love it. But the other part of this, right? And I know, being a generalist, like I get where Oliver was coming from on this, right? Is there anything in any of this to suggest that if you're in consulting and you're listening to this, that you need to begin to focus on something? Or are we saying, no, it's okay to be a generalist so long as you plan or actively manage your career? Are we saying either one of those things? I don't know, Phil, we've talked about career management, right?
Yeah. I get, for example, if I were in financial services and someone was, in that industry and there's like, I don't want to have to explain all of this to somebody all over again, right? I think that's a piece of that, right? But when any organization hires, it's a risk mitigation thing. Basically, they're not looking for the perfect hire. They're looking to not make the wrong hire. And so when they're looking for that risk mitigation bit, their concern is, well, if I bring in someone who doesn't have any skills in this area already, then there's a lot of risk that I'm now trying to figure out how I'm going to manage that risk. How will I train them? What will I do? Et cetera. I think they'll figure those things out. So for this person's problem, right? Or this person's challenge, I think they can say, look, are you telling me that IT solution development and M&A is not a big enough pond to play in? Are you saying that ocean of opportunity is not big enough for you to just say, well, let's just find something there? Now, if you say, I don't like that anymore, I want to do something new, well, that's you assuming some new risk and trying to decide how you're going to negotiate that, and you'll figure that out. But I think, maybe you are a better fit for some places than others. Why not go where that story is easy to tell, all other things being equal?
Let's talk about that for a second, right? Because, in this thread, there were a lot of answers, and I provided one that was sort of similar, which got no upvotes. Nobody liked it.
I got to downvote that. Can you send me the link?
Go downvote that.
Yeah, go downvote that.
What's this cat talking about? But yeah, which was basically like, look, if you're looking at this type of job in this industry with sort of this box around it, you've done a whole bunch of stuff. Can you tailor something that you've done that sort of fits that box? And tailor your resume to sort of fit the thing that you're applying for. That seems pretty obvious, right? But I think more specifically, what we would want to talk about is how do you craft a narrative, right, about what you've done and how what you've done can help solve whatever business problem these people are looking to solve, rather than saying, I've got Java, I've got, blah, blah, blah. I've got, I know about Splunk or whatever the heck it is, right? It's like, I know all these things. Do they really care about that? Or is it, as we're saying, right? If you tell a good story about what you've done that fits what they're looking for, that's more relevant to a conversation than just ticking boxes saying, like a bot, right? Like, hey, have you done this? Yes or no? And if you don't have the thing in your resume, it kicks your resume out. I think getting past that involves the network that we've talked about having good conversations. But once you get to the point where you're having a conversation, isn't it more important to tell a good story? Not lie. We're not saying that, right? But like to weave a good narrative about the things that you've done that apply to the situation.
It's spotlight effect in the story, right? So I think that's the thing that we want to do.
That's much more concise. That was a better way of saying it.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, and I always think about the idea, for example, some famous restaurateur once said, if you can't tell the concept of a restaurant in 2 sentences, you don't have a concept. And more importantly, no one else will tell their friends because they can't explain it either, right? You don't get 600 words or 2,000 words in someone else's head. You get 2 sentences. And the question is, what are they going to say about you, right? So if someone said, hey, tell me about Wendy Keene, right? Well, she's a strategy consultant. She's thoughtful. And I love the way that she approaches her work. That is a powerful couple of sentences, right? And someone says, okay, well, I guess I should have that conversation. The question is, how do you fit inside someone else's head? What are those 2 sentences? So what is the narrative arc of your career in 2 sentences? How do you explain who you are? Wendy, I see it.
No. I love this so much. And I just wanted to add one tiny point, which is, it's okay not to say everything, because I feel like some people feel like I have to live. But if I tell you that, then I'm leaving out all this stuff I did. That's right. You were going to remember those 2 sentences, a relevant story. You don't have to list all your laundry list of things you've done, right? To be worthy for that and be a relevant match.
Yeah, well, that is one of the things that we get paralyzed by, because we think we have to enumerate every one of the things we've ever done, every space we've ever been in, and that's not it. I always tell people, listen, you need a quiver full of arrows, but to kill this thing, you're only going to need 3, right? And so that's,
if you're good, maybe 1.
If you're good, it might be 1, maybe only 2. And I mean, I've certainly seen it done, right? But the point is, you're only going to pull on 3, because after that, no one's paying attention anyway. You've either done the job or you've not, and it doesn't matter what else is in there.
I think that's all we need to say on that topic. I mean, we beat the hell out of this guy, this poor cat.
I know. I had a picture of him in my head now. I feel like we've been so abusive.
He's crying
to this guy.
somewhere.
I say he looks like the Shmoo, or that little round character that come with a little sad face. Like those Phil
he's
and
an
Chris and Wendy,
emoji. Yeah.
Just terrible. I thought Shmoo, or what was that other character that was like a little round character and everybody beat up on him all the time, and they had the comic strips. Oh my gosh. Oh, it'll come be like the Ziggy or something.
Are you talking about Ziggy?
Ziggy, like Ziggy, right?
Wow.
A
Okay,
Shmoo
boomer.
or Ziggy. I know. I look, the Shmoo is even older, right?
Yeah,
That's just World War II. So I mean, these are terrible things. But it's like, yeah, we've just really done a disservice to this poor cat. I feel bad for him.
Well, no, and it's like, look, people are looking for. I think this was a pertinent question, because I think a lot of people are, especially in consulting, which is not, especially the big firms, big 4 firms and MBB, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, right? It's not a great market for those large firms. And I think, there's been layoffs. McKinsey, I think, deferred a partner class for the first time and then laid a bunch of people off. But so if you're emerging from one of those up or out situations, I think this is a really pertinent topic, which is, how do I take all the things that I've done and put together something that is relevant to the jobs that I'm applying for. And I think what we're saying is know who you are, apply to the right thing for what you want to do that you will be good at. And then lastly, presumably, if you are in one of these positions, you are good at telling a story. You got to tell a good story, right? About you. I don't know. That would be my sort of final thought on that. Wendy, what's your thing? And then I got to go to something that literally just popped up on my feed that I want to talk about. But Wendy, what are you thinking?
Well, I can't do any better than Phil. Two sentences, one arrow. That's all I got. That really does sum it up. But the importance of embracing generalist in big picture, being deliberate with your career, and as always, I know convenient, but trying to head off these things from happening, right? So building the network and kind of steering your career and being deliberate as you go. We all got a lot going on, but when things get tough, it's good to have that foundation in place.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Phil Yanoff. Thank you, Wendy Keene. I'm Chris Lockhart. If you want to find out what the very cool thing is that just popped up in my feed and see all the other stuff that didn't make this final edit, you should join and subscribe to the Patreon site. Few bucks, you get all the other stuff and access to our networks and all the very cool things that we do. And you can buy merch like this awesome hoodie I'm wearing. And Wendy, I love your coffee mug. Mm-hmm. Bill, I know you have one too. It must be.
I do, and I should have brought it up today, but I didn't think about it. I was in such a hurry. I got a busy morning, and I picked up the wrong coffee cup. So mine is, by the way, this isn't placement, but my friend Mike Brannaman made this. He is a sculptor and all of that, and he makes these beautiful mugs up in North Carolina. And so when I say he made it for me, like Chris, he made me buy it from him, but I think it was worth every penny that I paid for it. So,
well, anyway, listen, guys, I appreciate it, and we'll see everyone next time.